The courtyard of Greymoor Pack smelled of wood smoke and cruelty. Seren stood at its center, wrists bound with ceremonial rope that bit into her skin, her bare feet numb against the frozen cobblestones. Around her, 300 wolves had gathered in a wide circle, their breath rising in white clouds, their eyes hungry for spectacle. The air was thick with their excitement, the kind that accompanies public punishment, the kind that made decent people look away. Seren did not look away. She looked straight ahead and waited for the end. Seren? Ren's small voice cut through the murmuring crowd like a blade. What's happening? Why are they doing this to you? She couldn't see her brother through the sea of bodies, but she heard the fear trembling beneath his words. 10 years old and already learning the hardest lesson life had to offer. That love meant nothing when power decided otherwise. Hush, boy. Their Aunt Helda's voice, sharp with warning. Keep your head down. Don't draw attention. The morning sun hung low and pale on the horizon, a cold disk that offered light, but no warmth. Seren's thin dress, the same worn gray shift she had been given when she was demoted to kitchen servant 3 years ago, did nothing against the bitter wind that swept through the square. Goosebumps rose along her arms. Her teeth wanted to chatter. She refused to shiver. She would not give them that satisfaction. Alpha Aldrich circled her slowly, deliberately, his boots crunching against the frost-covered stones. He was a large man gone soft around the middle, his silver-streaked beard framing a face that had learned cruelty young and perfected it over decades. His smile made Seren's stomach turn. Before you stand Seren of no lineage, he announced, his voice carrying easily across the silent courtyard. Wolfless, mateless, a burden upon this pack for 22 years. Wolfless, the word cut deeper than any blade ever could. Seren felt it slice through her chest, felt it settle beside all the other wounds she carried in that hidden place beneath her ribs. If only they knew. If only they could see what prowled beneath her skin. Patient, burning, desperate for release. If only they understood the constant battle she fought to keep it caged. But they could never know. That was the one truth her mother had pressed into her before she died. They can never know what you are, my love. Promise me. She had promised, and she had kept that promise for 6 long years. Today, we correct an old mistake, Aldrich continued, spreading his arms wide as if bestowing a gift. Today, she is cast out from Greymoor, banished to the wilderness beyond our borders. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, some uncomfortable, most simply curious about what would happen next. Seren kept her gaze fixed on the tree line beyond the courtyard walls. The forest waited there, dark and endless. In winter, without shelter or supplies, banishment was simply a slower form of execution. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that she could feel him watching her. Cale stood near the front of the crowd, his arm wrapped possessively around Mira's waist. His chosen mate. The woman he had selected instead of Seren 5 years ago, when their mate bond had first sparked to life during the summer solstice celebration. She remembered that night with perfect, agonizing clarity. The way the bonfire had painted his features in gold. The way his eyes had widened when he felt the connection snap into place between them. That invisible thread that bound destined mates together. The way he had looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first and last time. And then the way his expression had shuttered closed. I reject this bond, he had announced the very next morning, loud enough for the entire pack to hear. I will not be mated to a wolfless Omega. She is beneath me. The words had shattered something inside her. Her wolf, her beautiful, secret, silver wolf, had howled with such anguish that Seren had collapsed to her knees. For 3 days afterward she had burned with fever, trapped between transformation and death. She had survived, barely, but she had learned to bury her wolf so deep that even Seren herself sometimes forgot she existed. Now Kale stood in the crowd, watching her banishment with flat, empty eyes. He wouldn't even meet her gaze. Any who wish to speak for the accused may do so now, Aldrich called out. The words were hollow tradition. No one ever spoke at these ceremonies. No one dared challenge the Alpha's judgment. Silence stretched across the courtyard, broken only by the whisper of wind. Then, I would speak. The voice came from beyond the crowd, deep and resonant, carrying an authority that made Aldrich seem like the yapping of a small dog. Every head turned. The gathered wolves parted instantly, stumbling over themselves to make way, heads bowing low as a figure strode through their midst. Serene's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen the Alpha King of Valdris in person, but there was no mistaking him. Soren was taller than any wolf she had ever encountered, broad-shouldered and powerful, wrapped in a black traveling cloak that did nothing to diminish his presence. His dark hair was windswept from hard riding, his jaw was sharp as carved stone, and his eyes were the color of molten amber, burning with intelligence and barely leashed power. They fixed directly on Seren's face with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. Your Majesty. Aldrich's voice had gone thin and reedy. We were not expecting a visit from... Clearly. Soren stopped at the edge of the platform, his gaze never leaving Seren. What crime has this woman committed? Aldrich fumbled visibly, his earlier confidence evaporating. She is wolfless, Your Majesty. A drain on pack resources. Our law permits... I know what pack law permits. Soren's tone could have frozen fire. I asked what crime she committed. The silence that followed was deafening. Seren could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. No crime, Aldrich finally admitted through clenched teeth. But surely Your Majesty understands that a wolfless... Then she comes with me. Gasps erupted through the crowd. Seren felt the world tilt beneath her frozen feet. Your Majesty, Aldrich sputtered, his face reddening. Surely you don't mean... I require servants at my palace. Soren's voice brooked no argument. She will do. He stepped onto the platform and drew a knife from his belt. Seren flinched instinctively, her body bracing for pain, but he merely cut through the ropes binding her wrists. The frayed ends fell away, and blood rushed back into her fingers with a painful tingle. Can you walk? He asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. This close, she could smell pine and wood smoke and something else. Something wild and masculine that made her pulse stutter. Yes. Her own voice sounded foreign to her ears, rough from disuse. Then walk. He turned and strode toward the courtyard gates, clearly expecting her to follow. Seren took one step, then another, her legs trembling but holding. Seren. Ren's voice, high and desperate, cut through the stunned silence. Her brother broke free from Aunt Helda's grip and ran toward her, tears streaming down his cheeks, his small body shaking with sobs. Seren dropped to her knees on the frozen cobblestones and caught him, pulling him tight against her chest. He smelled like wood shavings and the honey cakes cook sometimes snuck him. He smelled like home. I'll come back for you, she whispered fiercely against his hair. I swear it on my life. Be brave for me, little wolf. Promise? His voice cracked on the word. Promise. She kissed his forehead, breathing him in one last time, then forced herself to let go, to stand, to turn away from the only family she had left. The Alpha King was watching her from the gates. Something flickered in those golden depths, something that might have been curiosity, or recognition, or something else entirely. Something that made her wolf stir for the first time in years. "Come," he said, and Seren walked into the unknown. The Alpha King's traveling party moved through the forest like shadows given form. 12 wolves in total, including Soren himself, all mounted on horses bred for speed and endurance. They rode in tight formation, alert and watchful, hands never straying far from weapons. Seren was not given a horse. She walked behind them, her bare feet leaving bloody prints on the frozen ground. Each step was agony. The cobblestones of the courtyard had torn her soles, and now every rock and twig felt like a knife. But she bit down hard on the inside of her cheek and kept moving. She had survived worse than this. She would survive this too. Why did he take me? The question circled through her mind like a vulture. The Alpha King of Valdris could have any servant he desired, trained, skilled, valuable servants from noble families eager to curry favor. Why claim a disgraced Omega from a minor pack? Why intervene at all? She studied him from behind, this man who now held her fate in his hands. He rode at the front of the column on a massive black stallion, his posture relaxed, but his attention constantly scanning the tree line. Even from a distance, she could sense the coiled power in him, a predator who knew nothing in this forest could threaten him, but who remained vigilant nonetheless. The other wolves in his party kept stealing glances back at her, some merely curious, some openly hostile. One, in particular, a female warrior with close-cropped auburn hair and sharp gray eyes, watched Seren with undisguised suspicion. She rode near Soren's right flank, her hand resting casually on the blade at her hip, her attention returning to Seren again and again. "You're bleeding." The voice made Seren stumble. She looked up to find the Alpha King himself had fallen back from the formation, his massive black horse now walking alongside her. "It's nothing, Your Majesty." The words came automatically, the response of someone who had learned that admitting weakness only invited more pain. That wasn't a question. His amber gaze dropped to her feet, and his jaw tightened visibly. A muscle twitched beneath his eye. "Why didn't you say something?" "Because I've learned that speaking only brings punishment. Because I've spent 5 years making myself invisible, silent, small. Because I don't know what you want from me, and until I do, survival means showing no weakness." "I didn't want to slow the party," she said instead. For a long moment, he simply looked at her. The weight of his attention felt like standing too close to a fire, uncomfortable, intense, impossible to ignore. Then he swung down from his horse in one fluid motion and stood before her on the forest path. This close, she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. The top of her head barely reached his shoulder. She could smell pine and wood smoke and leather, and underneath it all, that wild masculine scent that made her blood warm despite the cold. Her wolf stirred restlessly beneath her skin. "No. Stay hidden. Stay sleeping. Don't react." "Rhett," Soren called without looking away from Seren's face. "Bring bandages and water." The suspicious female warrior's mouth thinned. "Your Majesty, we're losing daylight. Now." The single word cracked through the forest like a whip. Rhett's jaw tightened, but she dismounted and retrieved supplies from her saddlebags without further argument. Within moments, Seren found herself sitting on a fallen log, while the Alpha King of Valdris knelt in the frost before her to examine her bloody feet. "This is not necessary," she whispered, acutely aware of every eye upon them. The other warriors had stopped, watching the scene with expressions ranging from confusion to disapproval. "I can tend to myself? You can barely stand." His fingers were surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the wounds with water from his skin. "How long since you've eaten?" Seren hesitated. The truth. His eyes lifted to meet hers, golden and fierce and somehow kind. "I will know if you lie." 3 days, Your Majesty." His hand stilled on her ankle. When he looked up again, there was something dangerous in his expression. Not directed at her, she realized with surprise, but at the circumstances that had created this moment. At the pack that had starved her. At the world that had broken her. Rhett. Food and water, and find her a horse. "Your Majesty, we don't have spare mounts." "Then she rides with me." Serene's heart stopped. Before she could form a protest, Soren finished wrapping her feet in clean bandages, rose and lifted her as if she weighed nothing at all. One moment she was on the log. The next, she was seated on his war horse, his heavy cloak wrapped around her shoulders, still warm from his body. He swung up behind her, and suddenly she was surrounded by him. His arms reaching around her to take the reins, his chest solid against her back, his breath stirring the hair at her temple. "Hold on," he murmured near her ear, his voice a low rumble that she felt as much as heard. The horse began to move. Seren gripped its mane with trembling fingers, overwhelmingly aware of every point of contact between her body and his. Her wolf was very awake now, pacing in circles, making sounds that were almost like purring. "Stop it," she told herself fiercely. "Stop it right now." They rode in silence as the forest grew denser and the sky darkened toward evening. Seren's exhaustion pulled at her like chains, but she fought against it. She was terrified of what she might do, what she might reveal, if she fell asleep in a stranger's arms. But the warmth was seeping into her frozen bones. The rhythm of the horse was hypnotic. And despite every instinct screaming at her to stay alert, her eyes began to drift closed. "Sleep." The word rumbled through his chest and into her spine. "Nothing will harm you while you're with me." It should have sounded like a command. Instead, it sounded like a promise. Against all wisdom, Seren believed him. She slept, and she dreamed of silver fur and moonlight, of running through an endless forest with something ancient and powerful at her side. A black wolf with amber eyes ran beside her, matching her pace, guarding her flank. In the dream, she was not afraid. In the dream, she was finally free. When she woke, it was to firelight and the smell of roasting meat. She lay on a bedroll near a crackling fire, still wrapped in the Alpha King's cloak. The traveling party had made camp in a small clearing, and quiet conversation drifted through the evening air. Seren tried to sit up and gasped as pain lanced through her side, a deep, grinding ache beneath her ribs. "Easy." A weathered hand pressed her shoulder back down. An old woman with silver-streaked braids and knowing eyes leaned over her. Her face was lined with decades of life, but her gaze was sharp as broken glass. "You've been carrying a cracked rib for at least a week, girl. Sitting up quickly won't help it heal." Seren stared at her. "How did you know?" "I'm Brielle, the king's healer. Been tending wolves since before your mother was born, I'd wager." She pressed a cup of bitter-smelling tea into Seren's hands. "Drink. All of it. And don't bother lying about how you got that rib. I've seen enough abuse to recognize its marks." The words were matter of fact, not pitying. Somehow, that made them easier to bear. Seren drank the tea, grimacing at the taste but feeling warmth spread through her limbs almost immediately. "The king wishes to speak with you," Brielle said, rising with a creak of aging joints. "When you've finished, you'll find him by the stream east of camp." She paused at the edge of the firelight, looking back. Alone. Alone. The word hung in the air long after Brielle walked away. What could the Alpha King possibly want to discuss with a wolfless Omega in the darkness of a forest night? Seren drained the cup, pulled the cloak tighter around her shoulders, and went to find out. The stream cut through the forest like a ribbon of black silk, its surface reflecting the scattered stars above. Soren stood at its edge, his back to her, utterly still. Moonlight painted silver edges along his shoulders, his hair, the sharp line of his profile. In the darkness, he could have been a statue carved from shadow and starlight. Something ancient and elemental, more force of nature than man. Seren approached slowly, her bandaged feet silent on the moss-covered bank. Every instinct warred within her. Part of her wanted to run, from him, from this strange situation, from the way her carefully constructed walls seemed to crack and crumble in his presence. But a deeper part, a part she had silenced for 5 years, leaned toward him like a flower toward the sun. "You came." His voice was quiet, but it carried, rich and deep as the forest around them. He turned to face her, and Serene's breath stuttered in her chest. In the moonlight, he was devastating. The harsh authority she had seen in the courtyard had softened slightly, tempered by shadows and silver light. His amber eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire as they found hers. "You asked me to come, Your Majesty." She was proud that her voice remained steady. "So I came." "I didn't summon you. I asked." He took a step closer, and she had to fight the urge to step back. "There's a difference." The distinction shouldn't have mattered. Somehow it did. "Why am I here?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "The truth, please. I've had enough of games and political maneuvering to last a lifetime." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. The corner of his mouth twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. Straight to the point. That's refreshing. He closed the remaining distance between them in 2 strides, stopping so close she could count the individual flecks of gold in his amber eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body despite the cold night air. "Very well. I took you from Greymoor because you were about to die. Is that not reason enough? Alphas don't intervene in other packs' affairs, especially not kings, especially not for Omega servants." Seren held his gaze despite the fear coiling in her stomach, despite her wolf's increasingly frantic pacing. "There's something else. Something you want from me." For a long moment he simply looked at her, studied her, as if she were a puzzle he was trying to solve. "What I want," he said slowly, deliberately, "is to understand why a wolfless Omega would rather bleed than ask for help. Why she walks on broken feet without a single complaint. Why she looked at her own execution with more dignity than most warriors face battle." His head tilted slightly, those golden eyes never leaving her face. "You intrigue me, Seren, and I am not easily intrigued." Her name in his voice sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "Perhaps I've simply learned that asking for things only leads to disappointment. Perhaps." His gaze sharpened. "Or perhaps you're hiding something." Ice flooded her chest. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" He was too close. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could smell that intoxicating scent of pine and power that made her wolf throw herself against the walls of her cage. "Stay down. Stay hidden. Don't react." But for the first time in 5 years, her wolf wasn't listening. Something stirred in Seren's chest, a restless, prowling energy that had been dormant since the day Kale's rejection nearly killed her. She felt it stretch, felt it push against the barriers she had built, and panic clawed its way up her throat. No, 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 no. Your eyes, Soren breathed. Seren stumbled backward, one hand flying to her face. What? They changed. He was staring at her with an intensity that made her skin burn. Just for a moment. They flickered silver. The world seemed to narrow to a single point. The Alpha King's face, the knowing light in his expression, and the centuries-old secret that was threatening to claw its way to the surface. You're mistaken, Seren whispered. I'm wolfless. Everyone knows. Everyone believes. He stepped toward her, and she stepped back, her spine hitting a tree trunk. Trapped. Nowhere to run. But beliefs can be wrong, can't they? Carefully cultivated lies maintained for years, hidden so deep that even those closest to you never suspect. Stop. The word came out ragged, desperate. Please. Something shifted in his expression. The intensity remained, but it softened around the edges, tempered by something that looked almost like understanding, almost like compassion. I'm not your enemy, Seren. It was only the second time he had used her name. It sounded different in his voice, not like a label or a designation, but like a discovery, like something precious. Then what are you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching her face as if looking for something he desperately needed to find. I don't know yet. His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away, and came to rest against her cheek. His palm was warm, his touch achingly gentle, the touch of someone who understood what it meant to be fragile. But I intend to find out. The contact sent lightning racing through her veins. Her wolf didn't just stir. She howled. The sound echoed through Seren's soul, and she gasped as a wave of heat crashed through her body, igniting every nerve ending, setting her blood on fire. Soren's eyes widened. What? Pain. It hit her like a physical blow, buckling her knees. Only Soren's arms kept her from collapsing to the forest floor. Her bones were shifting, grinding against each other, trying to reshape themselves. Her skin felt too tight. Her spine was trying to curve in ways it shouldn't. 5 years of suppression. 5 years of holding her wolf down. And now it was all breaking apart. Seren. His voice was urgent, his arms tight around her trembling body. Talk to me. What's happening? She couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The wolf she had caged for so long was finally fighting for freedom, and the battle was tearing her apart from the inside. Through the haze of agony, she heard him shouting for Brielle, felt herself being lifted and carried, caught fragments of frightened voices and running footsteps. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pain stopped. Seren lay gasping in Soren's arms, her body trembling violently, her skin slicked with sweat despite the cold night air. She was still human, still in control, but barely. The wolf paced just beneath the surface now, no longer dormant, no longer willing to hide. What are you? Soren's whispered question hung in the air between them, heavy with wonder and fear, and something that might have been hope. Seren looked up into his amber eyes and saw the desperate need to understand. Part of her wanted to tell him everything, to finally share the secret that had been crushing her for years. But the words wouldn't come, and the darkness was calling. She let it take her. Seren woke to the smell of healing herbs and the crackle of a fire. For a disorienting moment she thought she was back in Greymoor, back in the cramped servants' quarters where she had spent 5 years scrubbing floors and swallowing her pride. But the bed beneath her was too soft, the blankets too warm, the room too quiet. When she opened her eyes, unfamiliar stone walls greeted her. High ceilings arched overhead, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to move in the flickering firelight. A massive window looked out over snow-capped mountains she had never seen before. She stirs. Brielle's weathered face appeared above her, sharp, eyes examining Serene with unsettling intensity. Where? Seren's voice cracked. Her throat felt like she had swallowed shards of glass. The palace of Valdris. Brielle pressed a cup of cool water to her lips. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. The memories crashed back like waves against a cliff. The stream, the moonlight, Soren's hand on her cheek. And then the pain. The terrible, bone-splitting agony of her wolf trying to break free after years of forced slumber. The king, Seren gasped, struggling to sit up despite Brielle's restraining hand. Does he know? He knows something happened, something beyond normal illness. Brielle's expression was unreadable. He's been pacing outside that door for the better part of 2 days, demanding answers I don't have. Seren's chest tightened. You can't tell him. Please, if anyone finds out what I am, and what exactly are you? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Brielle's eyes had narrowed, her gaze cutting through any pretense. I'm no one, Seren whispered, just a wolfless Omega. Child? Brielle's voice softened unexpectedly, the sharp edges dulling. I have been healing wolves for 60 years. I've tended warriors and kings, mothers and maidens. I know the difference between someone born without a wolf and someone whose wolf has been forcibly silenced. The word struck Seren like a slap. How long? Brielle asked quietly. How long have you been suppressing her? Seren closed her eyes, feeling tears burn behind her lids. 5 years of secrets, 5 years of silence, 5 years of slowly killing part of herself to survive. And now it was all unraveling in the span of days. Since my mate rejected me, she finally said, the words scraping past the lump in her throat. 5 years. She heard Brielle's sharp intake of breath. 5 years of suppression? Child that should have killed you within months. The fact that you've survived? Sometimes I wished I hadn't. The confession slipped out before Seren could stop it. Raw and honest and aching with old pain. She had never spoken those words aloud, had barely allowed herself to think them in the darkest hours of the night. A warm, wrinkled hand covered hers and squeezed gently. Tell me, Brielle said, from the beginning, all of it. And somehow, in this unfamiliar room with this strange old woman, Seren found herself doing exactly that. She told Brielle about the day her wolf first awakened, her 16th birthday, when silver fur had rippled across her skin like moonlight made solid, and a power unlike anything she had ever imagined had flooded her veins. She told her about her mother's terror, the warnings whispered by candlelight. Silver wolves are hunted, my love. Kings and alphas will kill for that power, or kill to destroy it. You must never let anyone see what you truly are. She told her about Kale, about the mate bond that had sparked between them when she was 17, the overwhelming rightness of it, the joy, the belief that she had finally found where she belonged. And she told her about the rejection that had shattered everything 3 days later. When he rejected me, Seren whispered, staring at the ceiling to keep the tears from falling. It felt like my wolf was dying, like someone had reached into my chest and was slowly crushing my heart. So I let her sleep. I buried her so deep that even I forgot she was there sometimes. And everyone believed I was wolfless, because that's what I needed them to believe. Brielle was silent for a long moment, her thumb tracing circles on the back of Seren's hand. A silver wolf, she finally murmured, something like awe coloring her weathered voice. I thought they were legends, stories told to children around winter fires. Legends get you killed. Seren's voice was bitter. Silence keeps you alive. And now? Seren thought of Soren's amber eyes glowing in the moonlight, of the way her wolf had stirred at his touch after years of stillness, of the way his arms had felt around her when everything was falling apart. Now I don't know what I am anymore. A knock at the door made them both tense. Brielle. Soren's voice, tight with barely contained urgency. She awake? Can I see her? The old healer looked at Seren, a question in her eyes. Seren hesitated, her heart racing. Then, slowly, she nodded. The door opened, and the Alpha King filled the doorway. He looked terrible, exhausted and disheveled, dark circles carved beneath his eyes, his jaw shadowed with stubble, his clothes wrinkled as if he had slept in them, or hadn't slept at all. But when his gaze found Seren's face, everything else fell away. You're awake. The words came out rough, almost broken. He crossed to her bedside in 3 swift strides and dropped to his knees on the stone floor beside her, taking her hand before she could protest. Thank the gods. When you collapsed, when you wouldn't wake, I thought... He stopped, swallowed. His fingers tightened around hers. You stayed, Seren whispered, something cracking open in her chest. For 2 days. You stayed. I couldn't leave. His eyes met hers, and she saw the truth in them, raw and unguarded. I don't know why. I don't understand what's happening between us, but I couldn't leave you. Your Majesty, Soren. His thumb traced circles on her palm, mirroring what Brielle had done moments before, but the effect was entirely different. Her skin tingled everywhere he touched. When you're lying in my palace after nearly dying in my arms, you call me Soren. That's not appropriate. I don't care. Her wolf stirred again, not with violence this time, but with something softer. Something that felt terrifyingly like recognition, like coming home. What happened at the stream? Soren said quietly. The pain, the collapse, your eyes changing color. What was that? Seren looked at Brielle, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Trust him, that nod seemed to say, or at least, give him something. A secret, Seren whispered. One that has kept me alive for 5 years, and one that could get me killed if the wrong people discovered it. Then tell only me. His burning gaze held hers, steady and sure. I swear on my crown, on my throne, on every ancestor who came before me, I will protect your secret with my last breath. I will die before I let anyone use it against you. The vow hung between them, heavy with meaning. Seren thought of her mother's warnings, of 5 years of fear and hiding, of every reason she should stay silent. Then she thought of how he had wrapped her bleeding feet with his own royal hands, how he had held her through pain without flinching, how he had spent 2 days outside her door, waiting, worrying, refusing to leave. She opened her mouth to answer, and the chamber doors exploded inward. Your Majesty. A young warrior stood in the doorway, face white as bone. Greymoor's Alpha has arrived at the gates. He's demanding the return of his property, and he's brought warriors. Every drop of warmth drained from Seren's body. Aldrich had come for her. The throne room of Valdris was carved from black stone and ancient power. Massive pillars stretched toward a ceiling lost in shadow, their surfaces etched with the names of every Alpha King who had ruled these lands for 1,000 years. Iron torches burned in sconces along the walls, casting dancing light across the assembled crowd of nobles and warriors who had gathered to witness the confrontation. Seren stood in the shadows near a side entrance, where Brielle had positioned her with strict instructions to stay hidden and stay silent. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she watched the scene unfold. At the center of the room stood Aldrich of Greymoor, his silver-streaked beard jutting forward with arrogance, flanked by a dozen of his strongest wolves. They wore their finest armor, hands resting on weapon hilts, a not-so-subtle threat wrapped in the pretense of formality. And among them, standing at Aldrich's right hand like a loyal dog, was Cale. Seren's former mate looked different than she remembered, harder, colder, his handsome face set in lines of cruel superiority. His eyes scanned the throne room restlessly, searching for something, searching for her. "Don't find me. Don't look this way." "You overstep, Aldrich." Soren's voice echoed through the throne room, cold as winter steel. He sat upon the obsidian throne at the far end of the hall. Every inch the Alpha King, powerful, commanding, and dangerous. The exhaustion Seren had seen in her chambers was gone, replaced by lethal authority. Coming to my palace uninvited, bringing armed warriors into my hall, making demands. "I come seeking justice, Your Majesty." Aldrich's tone dripped with false respect. "You took something that belongs to Greymoor Pack, a servant, my property, by rights of pack law." Property. The word came out like a curse. Soren's fingers tightened almost, imperceptibly on the arm of his throne. "She is a person, Aldrich, not a possession. She is a wolfless Omega who owes a debt of service to my pack." Aldrich spread his hands in mock reasonableness. "I'm sure Your Majesty didn't realize the complications when you acquired her. An unfortunate misunderstanding, easily corrected." "I acquired nothing. I offered sanctuary to a woman your pack was about to execute without legal cause." "Without cause?" Aldrich's mask slipped slightly, revealing the cruelty beneath. "She is a drain on resources, a burden on productive wolves. Pack law clearly states—" "I am aware of what pack law states." Soren rose from the throne, and even from across the room, Seren could feel the power radiating from him. Several of Aldrich's warriors took unconscious steps backward. "I am also aware that pack law does not supersede royal authority. She is under my protection now. She belongs to no one but herself. This discussion is over." For a moment, Aldrich's composure cracked entirely. Rage twisted his features. The same rage Seren had seen countless times before. It was followed by violence against those weaker than him. But they were not in Greymoor now. Here, Aldrich was not the highest power. "Of course, Your Majesty." The words scraped out through gritted teeth. "But perhaps we might discuss compensation? For the loss of a valuable servant? You want me to pay you." Soren's voice was dangerously soft. "For a woman you were going to kill. She has family in Greymoor. A brother." Aldrich's smile returned, oily and triumphant. "Surely you wouldn't want to separate them permanently. I'm certain arrangements could be made for his transfer as well, for the right price." Seren's blood turned to ice. Ren. He was threatening Ren. Before she could think, before she could stop herself, she was moving, stepping out of the shadows, walking into the throne room with her head held high despite the terror clawing at her throat. "Seren, no." Brielle's whispered warning came too late. Every eye in the room turned to her. Aldrich's smile widened into something predatory. Kale's face went pale, then flushed with something that looked almost like hunger. And Soren. Soren looked at her with an expression torn between fear and fury, his body coiling as if ready to launch himself between her and any threat. "There she is!" Aldrich's voice was silk over poison. "The little wolfless Omega who's caused so much trouble." Seren stopped in the center of the throne room, acutely aware of her plain dress, her bare feet, the way she must look standing before these nobles in their finery. But she forced her spine straight and her chin high. "Leave my brother out of this." Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "Whatever debt you think I owe, Ren has no part in it. He's just a child." "But family is everything, isn't it?" Aldrich circled closer, and Seren forced herself not to retreat. "Blood ties, pack bonds. Surely you wouldn't abandon your own brother to an uncertain fate." "Enough." Soren's voice cracked through the room like thunder. He descended from the throne platform in 3 swift strides and positioned himself at Seren's side, slightly in front of her, his body angled to shield her from Aldrich. A clear message that needed no words. "The girl and her brother are both under my protection," Soren announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Ren of Greymoor will be brought to Valdris within the fortnight. Any who interfere with his safe transport will answer to me personally. Is that clear?" Aldrich's face contorted with barely suppressed rage. "You cannot simply take members of my pack." "I can. I am. I have." Soren's eyes blazed. "This audience is finished. Guards, escort our guests to the borders of Valdris territory. And Aldrich?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper that somehow still carried. "If anything happens to that boy before he reaches my gates, I will hold you personally responsible, and you do not want to know what I do to those who harm children." Guards moved forward, and Aldrich had no choice but to allow himself to be escorted toward the doors. But as he passed Seren, he leaned close enough to whisper, "This isn't finished, little Omega. I know what you really are, and when I prove it, not even a king will be able to save you from what's coming." Then he was gone, his wolves following, and Seren was left standing in the throne room with her secret hanging by a thread. "Clear the room," Soren commanded. "Everyone out, now." Nobles and servants scurried for the exits. Within moments, only Soren, Seren, and Brielle remained, along with Rhett, who had somehow materialized from the shadows near a side door, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "He knows," Seren breathed, her whole body trembling. "Aldrich knows about my wolf. He must have suspected for years, been waiting for proof. He knows nothing." Soren's hands gripped her shoulders, steadying her. "He's fishing, trying to frighten you into revealing something he can use." "You don't understand." Tears burned her eyes. "If he finds proof, if he tells anyone about silver wolves..." "Silver wolves?" The words came from behind them. They all spun to find Rhett standing in a doorway they had thought was empty, her face pale with shock. And something else. Something that looked dangerously like hunger. "Did you say silver wolf?" Soren stepped in front of Seren, blocking her from view. "Rhett, whatever you think you heard." "I heard enough." Rhett's hand moved to rest on her blade. "Do you have any idea what a silver wolf is worth, Your Majesty? The power they contain? There are kings who would burn entire nations to possess one. Armies who would march across continents. And I would burn anyone who tried to take her." Soren's voice dropped to a lethal growl. "Including you, old friend." The 2 warriors faced each other, the air thick with tension. Seren held her breath. Then, Rhett's hand fell from her sword. I would never betray you, my king. You know this. I've bled beside you. I've killed for you. My loyalty is beyond question." Her gray eyes moved to Seren. "But others will not be so steadfast. If word spreads about what she is, you'll have every power-hungry alpha in the realm beating down your gates." "Then we ensure word doesn't spread." Soren turned to Seren, his expression torn. "You need to go somewhere safe, somewhere hidden, where no one would think to look for you while I deal with Aldrich and his accusations." "Go?" Serene's chest constricted. "But Ren, I will bring him to you myself. I swear it on my life." His hand rose to cup her cheek, achingly gentle despite the tension radiating through his body. "But right now, you are a target, and I cannot protect you properly if I'm fighting a political war on one front and defending against assassination attempts on another." She understood. She hated it, but she understood. "Where will I go?" "My mother's estate, in the northern mountains, hidden from maps and memories. The journey is hard, but you'll be safe there. Brielle will accompany you." Safe. Alone. Away from him. Her wolf howled in protest, and Seren realized with startling clarity that leaving him would hurt far more than she had any right to feel. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. Promise me this isn't goodbye." His answer was not words. He leaned down and pressed his lips to her forehead. Soft, reverent, burning with all the things neither of them had said. When he pulled away, his golden eyes blazed with a vow fiercer than any spoken oath. "This will never be goodbye. I will find you. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I will find you." 3 hours later, Seren rode into the mountains with Brielle at her side, leaving behind the Alpha King who had somehow become the center of her entire world. She didn't look back. If she had, she might have seen him standing alone on the palace walls, watching until she vanished into the swirling snow. Watching long after she was gone. 3 weeks. 21 days of mountain silence and growing desperation. Seren stood at the window of the northern estate, watching snow fall in endless curtains across a landscape so beautiful it made her chest ache. The manor was warm and comfortable, filled with servants who treated her with a kindness she had never experienced in her life. Brielle fussed over her constantly, plying her with healing teas and nourishing meals. By all accounts, she should have been content. She should have been grateful for this respite, this safety, this chance to heal. Instead, she was dying. Not dramatically, not all at once, but piece by piece, day by day, something inside her was withering. Her appetite had vanished despite the delicious food. Sleep had become a battlefield of fevered dreams and aching emptiness. And her wolf was no longer dormant. She paced constantly now, prowling through Seren's consciousness like a caged beast scenting freedom just beyond the bars. Some days the restlessness was merely uncomfortable, an itch beneath her skin, a tightness in her chest. Other days, Seren found herself on her knees, gasping through waves of longing so intense they bordered on physical agony. "It's the incomplete bond," Brielle explained quietly one evening, finding Seren curled in a chair by the fire, trembling and tear-streaked. "Your wolf has recognized the king as her mate. Being separated from him, especially before the bond is complete, is difficult." "Difficult?" Seren laughed bitterly. "That's one word for it." "It will ease with time," Brielle said. But her ancient eyes told a different story. The dreams were the worst part. Every night Soren came to her. Sometimes they stood by the stream again, moonlight painting silver across his features as he reached for her hand. Sometimes they walked through palace gardens she had never seen, his fingers intertwined with hers, his voice a low murmur against her ear. And sometimes he held her. His arms would wrap around her, pulling her against his broad chest, and she would feel complete in a way she had never experienced while waking. He would whisper her name like a prayer. His lips would graze her throat, and she would wake gasping, reaching for warmth that wasn't there, her body aching for a touch she might never feel again. Just dreams, she told herself fiercely, wishful thinking from a foolish heart. But the dreams felt more real than her waking hours, and she began to wonder if they were dreams at all. On the 18th night, her wolf took over the dreaming. Seren found herself running through an endless forest on 4 paws, silver fur rippling in the moonlight, wind singing past her ears. Power surged through her transformed body, wild and free and glorious, and ahead of her, keeping perfect pace, ran a massive black wolf with eyes like amber fire. Mate, her wolf sang, mine, ours. She woke with tears streaming down her face and her bones trying to crack apart. News came in fragments, carried by messengers and whispered among servants. Aldrich was gathering allies, spreading poison about the king who harbored dangerous creatures. Other packs were growing restless, sensing weakness, scenting opportunity. War drums beat in the distance, growing louder each day. And Soren had sent her no word, no letters, no messages, nothing. He's protecting you, Brielle insisted when Seren asked. Any communication could be intercepted. Any message could lead enemies here. His silence is his shield around you. Seren understood. But understanding didn't fill the hollow ache that grew deeper in her chest each day. On the 21st night, they came. Seren woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of screaming. She threw herself from the bed, bare feet hitting cold stone, and ran to the window. Below, the estate courtyard blazed with torchlight. Wolves, dozens of them, poured through the broken gates, their howls splitting the night like blades. Greymoor wolves. She recognized their markings, their formation, and the banner flying above them. Aldrich had found her. Seren! Brielle burst through the door, her weathered face white with terror. You must run, now. There's a passage in the cellar. The servants will show you. I won't leave you. You must. The old woman pressed something into Serene's hands, a small blade with a silver edge. Listen to me, child. If they take you, they won't just kill you. They'll use you, breed you, harvest whatever power your wolf holds until there's nothing left but a husk. Horror flooded through her, cold and absolute. The passage leads to the forest, Brielle continued, pushing her toward the door. Run north. Don't stop for anything. Find the king. He'll feel you through the bond if you shift. He'll come. A crash from below cut off her words. They were inside. Seren ran. She flew through corridors she had memorized during her weeks of quiet captivity, feet silent on cold stone, the blade clutched in her trembling hand. Behind her, she heard shouts and clashing steel, and Brielle's voice raised in fierce defiance. Please let her survive. Please. The cellar was dark and damp and ancient. The passage beyond it was narrower, carved through mountain rock by hands long dead. Seren stumbled through the blackness with one palm pressed against the wet stone wall, terror and instinct driving her forward. Finally, she burst into open air. The forest rose before her, dark and endless, snow swirling through skeletal branches. The cold hit her like a physical blow. She was barefoot, wearing nothing but a thin nightgown. In conditions that would kill a normal human within hours. But she wasn't entirely human anymore, was she? Run north. Find the king. Seren ran. She made it perhaps a mile before the wolves found her. They emerged from the trees like nightmares given form, 5 massive beasts, their eyes gleaming with cruel intelligence, their breath steaming in the frozen air. And at their center, shifting back into human form with a smile that made her stomach turn, stood Kale. "Hello, little mate." His voice dripped with mockery. "Did you really think you could escape us? Did you think you could escape me?" Seren raised the silver blade with shaking hands. "Stay back." "Or what?" He stepped closer, utterly unconcerned. "You'll hurt me? You, who couldn't even manifest a wolf to save your own pathetic life? You don't know what I am." "Oh, but I do." His eyes glittered in the moonlight. "I know exactly what you are, Seren. A silver wolf, the rarest creature in all the realms. Do you have any idea how much power is locked inside that pretty little body of yours? Power that should have been mine when I claimed you 5 years ago." The truth hit her like a physical blow. "You knew." Her voice came out strangled. "When you rejected me, you knew what I was?" "Of course I knew. I've always known." Kale's smile widened, cruel and triumphant. "Why do you think I rejected you so publicly? A wolfless Omega is worthless. No one would suspect. No one would look twice. But a hidden silver wolf, kept secret until I was ready to claim her properly?" He laughed, the sound ugly in the pristine silence. "You were supposed to stay broken, Seren. Stay desperate. Stay hopeless. You were supposed to come crawling back to me eventually, begging me to take you. But I didn't." "No." Rage flickered across his handsome features. "You went to him instead. The king. You let him touch you. Let him look at you. Let him—" A howl split the night. Not from Kale's wolves. From somewhere distant. Somewhere north. And answering it, from deep within Seren's chest, her wolf threw back her head and screamed. The sound that tore from Seren's throat was barely human. Power exploded through her veins, silver and blazing and absolutely unstoppable. Her bones cracked, her spine arched, her skin rippled with light. And for the first time in 5 years, she stopped fighting. The world went white. When the light faded, a wolf stood where a woman had been. She was silver from nose to tail, her fur gleaming like moonlight made solid, like starfire given form. She was smaller than the males surrounding her, but the power radiating from her body made them stumble backward in shock and fear. "Impossible," Kale breathed. Seren didn't give him time to recover. She lunged for his throat. The fight was chaos and instinct and silver fury. Seren had never used her wolf before, had never allowed herself even a moment of freedom in this form. But her body knew what to do. Centuries of ancestral memory guided her movements as she tore through Kale's wolves like they were made of paper and prayer. She was faster than them, stronger than she had any right to be. Her silver fur seemed to deflect their attacks, their teeth and claws sliding off her hide like water off stone. But she was also untrained, burning through power she didn't know how to control, running on instinct and rage and terror. One wolf fell before her, yelping as her jaws found his shoulder. 2, 3. They scrambled away from her. These wolves who had thought her easy prey, their eyes wide with fear of something they didn't understand. Kale shifted into his wolf form, a large brown beast with murder in his eyes, and launched himself at her throat. Seren twisted, but not fast enough. His teeth caught her shoulder, tearing through fur and muscle, and pain exploded through her consciousness. She heard herself howl, a sound of agony and rage that echoed through the frozen forest. Then something inside her snapped. Silver light blazed from her body like a second sun. The force of it threw Kale backward, sent him crashing into a tree trunk hard enough to splinter the ancient wood. The remaining wolves fled into the darkness, their howls of terror fading into the distance, and Seren collapsed. The shift reversed itself without her permission, her wolf retreating as quickly as she had emerged. Suddenly, Seren was human again, naked, bleeding, lying in the snow with her life pouring out of the wound in her shoulder. Cold. So cold. She tried to move. Her body refused. Is this how I die? She wondered, staring up at the stars through the bare branches. Alone in the snow, finally free, with no one to mourn me. Her vision was fading. The world had gone gray at the edges, narrowing to a single point of light somewhere above her. Then she heard howls, dozens of them, coming closer, coming fast. More enemies, she thought distantly. It doesn't matter anymore. But the wolf that burst into the clearing wasn't brown or gray or any color she had seen among Greymoor's warriors. He was black as midnight, massive beyond reason, with eyes that burned like molten amber. Soren. She knew him instantly, impossibly, the same way her heart knew to beat and her lungs knew to breathe. Her wolf, exhausted and wounded as she was, lifted her head one final time. Mate, she whispered into the darkness. You came for me. She felt him shift, felt warm hands gather her broken body against a broad chest, heard his voice cracking on her name. Seren. Seren, stay with me. Open your eyes. Don't you dare leave me. I'm trying, she wanted to say. I'm trying to stay. But the darkness is so heavy, and I'm so tired. I've got you, he said, his voice breaking. I've got you. Just hold on, please. Just hold on. She felt movement, wind against her frozen skin, the thundering of his heart beneath her ear, fast and desperate and alive. And then, nothing at all. Seren woke to warmth and the smell of healing herbs. For a moment, she simply lay still, cataloging sensations. Soft sheets beneath her, a fire crackling somewhere nearby, and a weight on the bed beside her. A hand wrapped around hers, calloused fingers intertwined with her own. She opened her eyes. Soren sat in a chair pulled close to her bedside, his head bowed, her hand pressed against his forehead. He looked destroyed, hollow-eyed and unshaven, his fine clothes wrinkled and stained, his whole body curved toward her as if she were the only light in his darkness. How long? Her voice came out as a rasp. His head snapped up. For a moment he simply stared at her, as if afraid she might disappear. Then his face crumpled and he pulled her hand to his chest, pressing it against his racing heart. 3 days. The words scraped out of him like broken glass. 3 days of not knowing if you would wake. If I had gotten there in time. If I had lost you before I ever truly had you. Seren reached up with her free hand, ignoring the protest of her healing shoulder, and touched his face. The stubble on his jaw was rough against her palm. His eyes closed at the contact, and a shudder ran through his entire body. You found me, she whispered. I felt you. His eyes opened, burning into hers. The moment you shifted, it was like lightning through my chest. I knew something was wrong. I ran through the night, followed the bond, and when I saw you lying there in the snow, not moving, so much blood, he couldn't finish. I'm here, she said softly. I'm alive. We're both alive. Barely. His jaw tightened. Kale escaped into the forest. But Aldrich's accusations have spread. He's claiming you attacked his wolves unprovoked, that you're a danger to all wolf kind. Some alphas are calling for your execution. Others... He paused, his expression darkening. Others want what you are, Seren finished. They want to possess me. I won't let that happen. His hand tightened on hers. There's only one way to protect you completely. One way to ensure no alpha, no king, no force in this world can ever claim you or take you from me. Her pulse quickened. What way? The mating bond. His amber eyes met hers, full of longing and fear and desperate hope. If we complete it, truly complete it, with the claiming bite, you become untouchable. My queen. My equal in every way. No law, no tradition, no power could separate us. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. But, Serene whispered, hearing the hesitation beneath his words, but it has to be your choice. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I won't trap you in a bond you don't want. I won't become another cage. I've seen what it did to you, being claimed by someone who didn't truly want you. I couldn't bear to... Soren. She squeezed his hand, cutting off his spiral. You think I don't want this? These weeks apart were torture. Every night I dreamed of you. Every day I ached for you. My wolf has been screaming your name since the moment you touched my face by that stream. Hope flickered in his eyes, fragile and desperate. But I'm afraid, she confessed, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I gave myself to someone once, and he shattered me. What if I'm not strong enough to survive that kind of pain again? Soren leaned forward, cupping her face in both hands with devastating gentleness. You are the strongest person I have ever known, he said fiercely. You survived 5 years of suppression that should have killed you. You faced your abusers with your head held high. You shifted for the first time in the middle of battle and fought like a warrior born. You are magnificent, Seren, and I am not Kyle. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I will never reject you, he continued, his voice breaking with the weight of his vow. I will never abandon you. I will spend every day of my existence proving that you made the right choice. If you'll let me. The door burst open. Your Majesty. A warrior stood in the doorway, face pale as death. Greymoor's forces are approaching. Aldrich has gathered 6 packs to his banner. They'll reach the palace by dawn. Soren's expression hardened to stone. How many wolves? 500. Maybe more. 500. Against Valdris's 300. Warriors. Soren rose, his hand sliding reluctantly from Seren's grasp. Prepare the defenses. I want every able body armed and ready within the hour. Yes, Your Majesty. The warrior fled. Soren turned back to Seren, and she saw the terrible truth in his eyes. This battle might be his last. Stay here, he said quietly. Stay safe. Whatever happens. No. The word came out stronger than she expected. Seren, I won't hide in a room while you die for me. She pushed herself upright, ignoring the pain. I won't cower and wait to find out if I'm a queen or a prisoner. I spent 5 years being invisible, being nothing. I will not go back to that. Not even for you. Something shifted in his expression, from fear to wonder to fierce blazing pride. Stubborn, he murmured, determined. Impossible. Yours. The word slipped out before she could stop it. If you'll still have me. His answer was not gentle. He pulled her against him and kissed her like the world was ending, which perhaps it was. His mouth claimed hers with 5 weeks of desperate longing, and Seren kissed him back with everything she had, everything she was, everything she wanted to be. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, his forehead pressed against hers. After this battle, he said roughly, we complete the bond, properly, with vows and witnesses and everything you deserve. And if we don't survive the battle? His smile was sharp as a blade. Then we take as many of them with us as we can. Dawn broke blood red over Valdris. Seren stood on the palace walls beside Sorin, watching the army approach across the frozen plains. 500 wolves, their howls splitting the morning air, their ranks bristling with warriors who had come to claim her or kill her. It didn't matter which to them. At their head rode Aldrich, his silver-streaked beard visible even at this distance. His banner, a gray wolf on black, snapped in the bitter wind. And beside him, somehow still standing after everything, rode Chaol. He survived, Seren breathed. He won't survive today. Sorin's hand found hers. I swear it. But as she watched the army draw closer, something strange stirred in Seren's chest. Not fear, not even anger. Power. It had been building since she woke. A pressure beneath her skin, growing stronger with each passing hour, like a storm gathering force. Her wolf was no longer exhausted from the fight in the forest. She was waiting, preparing, gathering strength for something Seren didn't yet understand. A horn sounded from below. Aldrich's army had stopped just beyond arrow range, and a single figure was riding forward under a flag of parley. Aldrich himself. He wants to negotiate, Rhett said, appearing at Sorin's side. Probably to offer terms he knows you won't accept. I know exactly what terms he'll offer. Sorin's voice was ice. Her, in exchange for peace. Then we don't parley. We do. Seren straightened her spine. I want to face him. I want him to see that I'm not afraid anymore. Sorin studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. They descended together, walking through the palace gates to meet their enemy on the frozen ground between armies. Seren felt hundreds of eyes upon her. Valdris wolves at her back, Greymoor wolves before her, and she held her head high. Aldrich's smile was poison wrapped in silk. Your Majesty, and the little wolfless Omega who has caused so much trouble. His eyes raked over Seren with undisguised hunger. Though I hear she's not so wolfless after all. State your terms, Sorin said flatly. Simple enough. Give us the girl. We leave in peace. Refuse and... He gestured at the army behind him. Well, you can count. She's not a bargaining chip. She's a silver wolf. All pretense of civility vanished from Aldrich's voice. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How valuable? Her bloodline alone is worth more than your entire kingdom. Her bloodline is not for sale. Everything is for sale, boy king. Aldrich stepped closer, lowering his voice. I'm offering you a way out. Take it. Find another mate. One without complications. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed. You're right. Sorin's smile was lethal. It doesn't. He moved faster than sight. One moment he was standing beside Seren. The next, his hand was around Aldrich's throat, lifting the older alpha off his feet as easily as lifting a child. Here are my terms, Sorin snarled into Aldrich's purpling face. Leave, now. Take your army and your ambitions and crawl back to whatever hole spawned you. If I ever see your face again, I will tear out your throat with my bare hands and feed your corpse to the crows. Chaos erupted. Greymoor warriors surged forward. Valdris wolves howled in response. And suddenly the parley ground was a battlefield, wolves clashing in a storm of fur and fury. Seren lost sight of Sorin almost immediately in the chaos of battle. She spun, searching for him through the madness of snarling wolves and flashing blades, and found herself face to face with Chaol. Hello again, little mate. His smile was a wound. Ready to come home? I was never yours. Seren's voice didn't waver. The bond meant nothing to you. You rejected it. You rejected me. I was a fool. He stepped closer and she stepped back. But I can fix that now. Accept me. Complete the bond with me instead of him. I'll protect you from all of this. Protect me? She laughed, the sound bitter as ash. You hunted me through the snow. You tried to drag me back like an animal. Because you belong to me. The mask cracked, revealing the festering rage beneath. You were always supposed to be mine, my silver wolf, my power. I belong to no one but myself. Then you die with the rest of them. He shifted, brown fur rippling across his body, and lunged for her throat. But Seren was ready. The power that had been building inside her erupted like a dam finally breaking. Light blazed from her skin, silver and blinding, and, when it faded, she stood in wolf form once more, magnificent and terrible and free. They clashed in a storm of teeth and claws, silver against brown. Seren fought with everything she had, every ounce of power, every year of suppressed rage, every moment of pain and fear and longing transformed into something fierce and unstoppable. A black wolf appeared beside her, massive and magnificent, and together they drove Kale back. Soren fought like a demon unleashed, his jaws finding every weakness, his body shielding hers when needed. Mate, her wolf sang through the chaos. Mine, mine, his wolf answered, the word resonating through their incomplete bond. Kale fell beneath their combined assault, his brown form crumpling to the frozen earth. Around them, the battle was shifting. Greymoor wolves, seeing their champions fall, began to retreat. But Aldrich wasn't finished. Seren saw him emerge from the chaos, a silver blade in his hand, wolf's bane coating the edge, gleaming with deadly poison. He moved toward Soren's unprotected back, and time seemed to slow to a crawl. No, she didn't think. She simply moved. Her body slammed into Aldrich's just as the blade descended. Pain exploded through her side as the poisoned edge bit deep into her flesh. But her jaws closed around his arm, crushing bone with supernatural strength. He screamed and fell. Seren! Soren's howl of anguish split the morning air. She shifted back to human form and collapsed into his arms as he caught her. His face was pale with terror, his hands pressing frantically against the wound in her side as blood seeped between his fingers. No, he breathed. No, 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 stay with me. Seren, stay with me. The bond, she whispered. Her vision was darkening, the poison spreading ice through her veins. Complete it. Now. You're dying. A mated pair shares everything. She grabbed his face with blood-slicked hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Strength, power, life force. If you claim me now, your wolf can help mine fight the poison. Please, Soren, it's the only way. And if it's not enough, then we die together. She managed a smile. I can think of worse fates. Tears streamed down his face, cutting tracks through the blood and dirt. I can't lose you. I just found you. Then don't let me go. He kissed her, desperate and fierce. And when he pulled back, his eyes had turned to molten gold, his wolf rising to the surface. Mine, he growled, and his teeth found her throat. The bite was pain and pleasure and something transcendent beyond both. His essence poured into her, wild and ancient and achingly familiar. Their souls crashed together like waves against cliffs, and in that collision, she finally found herself. Not broken, not rejected, not wolfless or worthless or invisible. She was Seren of the Silver Wolf, mate to the Alpha King, and she was exactly where she belonged. Power flooded through the completed bond, his strength becoming hers, his wolf rising to meet her wolf. in a dance older than time itself. Together, they pushed back against the poison. Together, they burned it away. When Seren opened her eyes, the sun had fully risen, painting the battlefield in gold. Aldrich's army had fled or surrendered. The Greymoor Alpha himself lay dead, killed by his own poisoned blade when he fell upon it in the chaos. And Chaol knelt in the snow, surrounded by Valdris warriors, his head bowed in final defeat. But Seren barely noticed any of it. She was looking at Sorin, who was looking at her with an expression of such profound wonder that it made her chest ache with joy. "You're alive," he breathed. "We're alive." She reached up to touch his face, her mate's face. "The bond, I can feel it. I can feel you, everything. And I you." His voice broke. "Every heartbeat, every breath. I feel it all." Around them, wolves were shifting back to human form, tending the wounded, gathering prisoners. The battle was over. They had won. And Seren knew, with absolute certainty, that this was only the beginning. "Ren," she said suddenly, "my brother is already safe within the palace walls." Sorin helped her to her feet, supporting her weight easily. "I sent my fastest riders the moment I returned from the mountains. He's been driving the servants mad with questions about you for a week now." Tears pricked her eyes. "He's really here? He's really here. He's safe. And I will spend the rest of my days ensuring neither of you ever feels alone or afraid again." She believed him. For the first time in 5 long years, Seren believed. 3 months later, the throne room of Valdris was filled with flowers. White roses and silver lilies cascaded from every surface, their fragrance filling the air with sweetness. Hundreds of candles burned in crystal holders, their light dancing across the faces of the wolves who had gathered from across the realm to witness what many called the mating ceremony of the century. Seren stood at the center of it all, and she had never felt more beautiful. Her silver hair was braided with moonflowers and tiny diamonds that caught the candlelight. Her gown was white as fresh snow, fitted perfectly to her body, flowing behind her like liquid starlight. And on her throat, visible for all to see, was the claiming mark that proclaimed her the Alpha King's mate. Beside her, Sorin wore black and gold, his dark hair swept back from his face, his amber eyes never leaving hers. He looked at her like she was the answer to every question he had ever asked. "Do you accept this wolf as your mate?" the elder intoned, his ancient voice carrying through the hushed hall. "To stand beside through darkness and light? To protect and cherish until your last breath?" "I do." Sorin's voice carried to every corner of the room. "I claim her. I choose her. I am hers, as she is mine, from this day until my last day. And you, Seren of the Silver Wolf?" She looked at the man who had seen her at her lowest and lifted her up, who had knelt in the frost to bandage her bleeding feet, who had run through the night to find her, who had offered her his throat and his heart without hesitation. "I do." Her voice rang clear and strong. "I claim him. I choose him. I am his, as he is mine, from this day until my last day." The bond between them blazed to life, not new, but renewed, witnessed, celebrated, made eternal. The crowd erupted in cheers, and in the front row, bouncing with barely contained excitement, Ren whooped loud enough to shake the rafters. Beside him, Brielle wiped tears from her weathered cheeks. Later, when the celebrations had quieted and the guests had departed, Sorin led Seren onto their private balcony overlooking the kingdom that was now hers as much as his. The moon hung full and silver in the sky, a wolf's moon, old legends called it. "Any regrets?" Soren murmured against her hair, his arms wrapped around her from behind. Seren thought of the girl she had been, invisible, broken, so certain she would never deserve love, a girl who had buried her own soul to survive. She thought of the woman she had become, powerful, cherished, and finally free, a queen, a mate, a silver wolf who had stopped hiding. None, she said, not a single one. He turned her in his arms and kissed her under the moonlight, soft at first, then deeper, full of promise and passion and forever. Below them, wolves began to howl, one voice, then another, then dozens, then hundreds, a chorus of celebration rising to meet the stars. And somewhere in the silver light, two spirits ran together through an endless forest, finally and forever home. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed Seren and Soren's story. If you'd like to hear more stories like this one, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything to me, and I can't wait to share more adventures with you.